going to present digital legacy systems for young adults.
Thank you, Rakesh, for a lovely introduction, and thank you for all my previous presenters. It's an honor to finish off this session, which has been wonderful. As introduced, nice to meet you. I'm Sunho, extremely jet-lagged Kwon, and currently a PhD student at Georgia Tech, and I will be presenting our paper on behalf of my lovely co-authors. On a Halloween night about 3 years ago, a tragic crowd crush in Seoul, Korea took the lives of more than 150 people, mostly in their 20s and 30s and even teens. As people in our 20s, this deeply impacted both me and my team members because it was a stark reminder that death is never truly far away, that we could wake up one day and face the unforeseen demise. And this realization led us to explore how we might actually prepare for such untimely and tragic death. However, most existing death preparation technologies are often designed for older adults or terminally ill patients. Thus, these technologies primarily focus on administrative tasks like will management or funeral planning, which felt a little distant from young adults' needs and wants. So this led us to ask the question of how can we design a death preparation system that better caters for young adults' needs? With such a goal in mind, our study had 3 phases. So on the first phase, we conducted a cultural probe study to understand young adults' key values in death preparation. On the second phase, we created 3 conceptual digital legacy curation systems and presented them in a design workbook format. And finally, we created a prototype of the most well-received design from the previous phase and conducted a testing session. Now, discussions on death-related technology is nothing new to the HCI. Specifically, digital legacy curation looks into technologies that could aid people in curating their digital footprints into a legacy that remains after one's passing. Adhering to existing studies, we highlight 3 main points in discussing such systems. So firstly, we saw designs that go beyond the asset-based approaches like password or medical record sharing to focus more on the emotional and relational dimensions of such digital legacies. Second, we examined how physicality could tie into such systems, informed by prior works that emphasizes how sole reliance on digital tools may come off as often impersonal and insincere for those remaining. Kind of like how children felt about the forest. Finally, we built on studies that showcase how values on death significantly differ by age and how contemplating mortality at a young age fosters better health, compassion, and just general well-being. To begin our study, we conducted a cultural probe and interview study to understand young adults' perception on death preparation to lay out the possible design space. We asked 10 participants to complete a 5-day probe kit. This kit included tasks such as selecting 5 photos they wish to leave behind, choosing 3 personal items to pass on, or designing their own tombstones. And these probes were used to understand the context in which we were working with, and also used as a catalyst for discussion in the following interview sessions. And here are the key findings. First, we observed 3 main goals in digital legacy making. Reducing the emotional burdens on loved ones by leading preemptive consolation, preparing certain assets to reduce administrative burdens, and finally ensuring that they are remembered meaningfully by those remaining. Participants also discussed differing attitudes toward digital and physical media for legacy making. While they appreciated the efficiency that digital platforms could give in curating such legacies, they also considered them to be a little too lighthearted to be the vessels themselves, while physical and tangible media to be a little more sincere. And finally, participants shared how completing the probe kit allowed them to appreciate the present more. So as they were completing the probe, thinking about death and what comes afterwards made them realize and cherish what they have currently and have prompted them to express their love to their families and friends. Based on such findings, we designed 3 conceptual legacy curation systems that firstly caters to the goals of young adults, and secondly to explore the various notions of physicality. Our first design, My Life in Exhibition, is a virtual exhibition space where users curate and display key life moments in an immersive VR format. We also explored how physicality might be interpreted in a virtual space through perceived embodiment. Second, Final Date is a task-based legacy system in which the bereaved are invited to complete a set of meaningful activities curated by the deceased, such as visiting my personal favorite restaurant. And completing these activities unlocks a pre-recorded video message from the deceased. And through this system, we aim to explore how physical activities, rather than artifacts, might be perceived as legacies. Finally, Letter Across Time is a system that allows users to write letters linked to digital photos, which are then physically mailed to the remaining ones after one's passing. Similar to the People's album that you will most likely find in your mobile phones, the system recognizes familiar faces in the user's mobile gallery, and it enables users to create a personalized message package consisting of photos and letters for a specific recipient. Once the system is notified of the user's passing, the physical package are sent to the intended recipients. And this concept aims to leverage the digital efficiency while preserving the sincerity of physical mementos and artifacts. So we presented these concepts in a design workbook format to 23 young adults in Korea, detailing key features, use case scenarios, and the motivations behind each design concepts. We then interviewed them to assess their preferences and feedback. And among our many findings that you can look at our paper, we observed that intended recipients of the legacies are a major focus of discussion. Unlike older adults or terminally ill patients, young adults considered both the current and future relationships in picturing their recipients of such legacies. In considering the current family members, i.e. older family members like parents, participants contemplated on the emotional and digital burdens that would be placed upon them. So for instance, if we think of the VR version, My Life in Exhibition, it could be a little difficult for older family members to use and appreciate who are not familiar with such technologies. And additionally, participants looked ahead to the future relationships, such as future spouse, children, or new friends, emphasizing the need for a system that allows for regular updates of such legacies. In the end, most participants favored Letter Across Time for its use of physical media. And this has two implications. Firstly, they considered tangible artifacts as more sincere compared to those displayed on digital matters. And secondly, they found them to be more accessible for the older bereaved members who they expected to be unfamiliar or uncomfortable with the state-of-the-art technology. Given its strong reception, we developed a high-fidelity prototype of Letter Across Time, and the prototype featured a mobile graphical user interface for selecting the recipients and curating the letters with photos, as well as a physical package that will be mailed after users' passing. So we conducted user testing sessions with 6 young adults in Korea with these prototypes, and while we would love to share the findings, due to time constraints, I will now move on to the study's broader implications for deaf technologies and HCI. We connect our findings to 4 key topics in death-related technologies and HCI. Perhaps the biggest contributions of our study is that we turned our eyes on death techs to unexpected users. We invite HCI scholars to extend such efforts by moving beyond the normalized scenarios of death, such as having a family member or dying of old age or illness. And this may include looking into other specific death contexts, such as those dying without family, or queer individuals with no traditional family, or people working in hazardous environments such as firefighters or military personnel, leading to a more catered and situated design of legacy making. Secondly, we highlight how death preparation technologies can spark existential reflections. Aligning with existing psychological and existential studies, our studies showed that contemplating death enabled deeper appreciations for life and relationships. And as such, we propose that death-related technology's potential in facilitating such existential experiences, establishing a well-being through well-dying. Thirdly, we highlight the temporal nature of legacy interactions. Now, users' desire on post-death interaction is not fixed. As we continue to live, these desires constantly change, which should be aptly reflected in the curated digital legacies. And we may also look into how they further interact with the remaining ones after they pass away through such curated legacies. These findings align with thanato-sensitive design, which considers users' eventual passing in systems beyond death technologies, as well as the post-userist movement, which rethinks the interaction behind the traditional notion of use. And finally, we propose the liminal space between physical and digital as an important consideration in digital legacy systems. Unlike purely digital artifacts like necklaces or purely digital assets like social media accounts, legacies in modern age often exist in hybrid forms, such as digital photographs that could be printed or personal laptops left behind. And as digital and physical spheres get more increasingly intermingled and intertwined, we encourage HCI researchers to consider the full spectrum of such possible legacies, further categorizing, analyzing, and integrating them into the design of legacy technologies. That concludes my presentation. Thank you all my co-authors for being wonderful collaborators and making me these t-shirts. If you want to connect more, there's a QR code at the back, so you can scan it. Thank you very much.